Good morning. This is the special meeting of the Ohio Industrial Commission on December 15, 2021. This is Jim Hughes, the chairman. Present with me also is Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, as well as Commissioner Dan Massey. We're at the special meeting is now called to order. This meeting is being conducted in person. It's being held in the main hearing room of the William Green Building, which is located at 30 West Spring Street in Columbus, Ohio. This meeting is also being streamed to the Ohio Industrial Commission's YouTube channel. The link to listen to our meeting is available on our public website. The purpose of the special meeting is limited to the following: review and discussion of proposed amendments to Rule 4121-3-09 and Joint Rule 4125-1-01. We'd also roll call vote if appropriate on the proposed amendments to the rules, as well as review and discussion of proposed amendments to memos K5 and E6, and if necessary, and will of the commission, that will roll call vote on the proposed amendments to memos K5 and E6. During this meeting, it is important that prior to speaking, each participant introduce themselves by stating their name and their title. This is to ensure that the audio recording accurately reflects the proceedings and the public is properly informed. I now ask our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll of the commission, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and affirm your presence. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, here.
Commissioner Daniel Massey.
Commissioner Daniel Massey, here.
Commissioner Jim Hughes.
Commissioner Jim Hughes, here. We do have a quorum. We'll now proceed to our first matter that we have. That is review and discussion of the OAC 4121-3-09. Floor is now open for review and discussion of OAC 4121-3-09. As a point of order, just make sure everybody's aware, the Industrial Commission has worked diligent with the stakeholders in drafting revisions to this rule. While we have reached consensus on some language, we're continuing our discussions as we continue to receive feedback from our stakeholders in order to craft language that is now naturally statutory compliant and address and resolves continuing areas of concern. Our legal division has recommended that at this time, the Commission approves the rule being filed as no change. That will allow the Commission to remain compliant with their 5-year rule filing obligations. We'll reopen the rule in compliance with JCAR procedures once we've accepted a solution that is agreeable to all parties. So on the first matter of 4121-309, before I ask for a motion to discuss it, I'm going to call upon our legal department to give a little more brief synopsis to make sure all the commissioners know exactly what they're voting on. Either this could be through our chief counsel, Mr. Burkhart, or through assistant counsel, Amanda Brown.
Chairman and commissioners, we've worked with stakeholders to amend that particular rule to allow for broader authority for the commission in the conduct of hearings and to adapt to certain technologies that are available to us and to eliminate the waiver that's currently necessary for certain representatives when they are working with employers on hearings. We haven't quite got there yet, so it's our recommendation that that rule be approved as no change or filed as no change with JCAR, with the understanding and in agreement, I think, with our stakeholders that we'll continue to work with them until we can come to a acceptable resolution for everybody. We can reopen the rule at any time, but we want to be compliant with the 5-year rule review requirements.
And that was Mr. Jim Burkhart, Chief Counsel.
I'm sorry.
For the record, so we have that. This is Jim Hughes, Chairman, asking the question. Just to make sure, Mr. Burkhart, to be clear, because I know a lot of you naturally know the rule numbers and everything else, make sure this is, the commissioners have received some correspondence from some of the interested parties regarding wage loss. This is not the wage loss matter we're speaking about right now, correct?
Correct. This is not the wage loss rule.
Okay. Is there, I mean, to cut you off, is there anything else you'd like to share before I ask the other commissioners if they have any questions of you?
No, I think that's.
Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions of Mr. Burkhart or Ms. Brown in terms of anything in regards to this rule?
I do not, Mr. Chairman.
This is Commissioner Karen Gilmore. I have no questions. Thank you.
The first person was Mr. Dan Massey, Commissioner. He did not have. And I, as Jim Hughes, Chairman, do not either. Having no further discussion, I move to file 4121-3-09 as a no change to the 5-year review committee. Do I have a second on my motion?
I will second. Commissioner Massey will second.
This is Jim Hughes, Commissioners, and properly moved by me as well as seconded by Commissioner Massey to have this go as no change. I would ask our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll of the Commission regarding that motion, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Daniel Massey.
Commissioner Daniel Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. The motion does carry, 3-0 vote. Now we'll move on to our other rule that we were discussing, which is Joint Rule 4125-1-01, the wage loss compensation. This, as many know, is a joint review rule of the Commission and the BWC, but is also part of our 2022 5-year review. These recommended changes were developed to review with our legal department, participation, input of the BWC, and our stakeholder group. I'd also, at this point in my time, still call upon our legal, because I know they've been working very hard the last 48 hours, to say the least, which we appreciate, working with our stakeholders, which I know present here, and we appreciate them too. Would you please enlighten the Commission regarding this one, please?
Yes, this is Jim Burke, our Chief Counsel with the Industrial Commission, Chairman Hughes, and Commissioners. We have worked with stakeholders on this for some time. There's been a lot of back and forth on getting the language appropriate. We believe that the language that we've recommended is consistent with the provisions of HB 81 and a recent Supreme Court ruling, Ryan Alternative Staffing versus Moss. We've received feedback from the NFIB, Carmen Garsick, the Chamber of Commerce, Kevin Schimpf sent me a voicemail last night, Phil Fulton, Buzz Miner working through Mr. Fulton and the BWC, Tom Seco, where they are in agreement or have no opposition to the proposed changes that we've provided you. And we would recommend that it be adopted. That's it.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Just to be clear, you're saying all the people you've been working with has at least correspond, either audio or written back to you, saying they're in agreement with what we're doing this morning. Is that what you're stating to the Commission?
Jim Burkhardt, Chief Counsel. Yes, Chairman, we do have either an email or a voicemail from all the interested parties.
Sorry, raise your hand. No, stretching not, Ms. Brown. I'm sorry. This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. I'm now going to ask my fellow commissioners and see if they have any questions of our legal regarding this rule. I'll first go to Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, see if she has any questions of anybody on this wage loss rule.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. Yes, I would, because we got some things late yesterday, recommending other changes. I would like to know just a quick summary. You don't have to do the whole thing, but is this the one that was agreed to Monday, or has it changed overnight last night?
There were no changes last night. The last confirmation I got was from Kevin Schimpf, who left me a voicemail. He's with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, saying that they had no opposition to the changes. So that was it. We've made no other changes to the recommended rule.
Thank you very much.
And just for the record, this is Jim Hughes speaking. That was Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, who said thank you very much. The person who answered the question was Mr. Jim Burkhardt, who was our Chief Counsel. It also should be noted for the record, Mr. Kevin Schimpf is also present here in the Commission room. So if we were saying something that wasn't the case, I know he would at least raise his hand and let us know that maybe we were mistaken. Do you have any further questions of Mr. Burkhardt?
This is Commissioner Gilmore. No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim Hughes, Chairman. I will now ask Mr. Dan Massey or other commissioners to see if he has any questions.
This is Dan Massey. I do not.
Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, I move to adopt the recommended amendments to Joint Rule 4125-1-01. Do I have a second to this motion?
This is Commissioner Gilmore.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Has been properly moved and seconded. I'll now ask our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Daniel Massey.
Commissioner Daniel Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
This is Jim Hughes, Commissioner. Yes. It does receive the proper number of votes, so that motion will carry. We'll now go to review and discussion of Memo K5 revisions. I would now ask our Director of Adjudication, Mr. Tom Connors, if he would address the proposed revisions to the Commission, please. Let's address the memo.
Good morning. This is Tom Connors, Director of Adjudication. The amendment suggested to this policy, this has been a policy that we've had involving the timely completion of orders by hearing officers. In the past, what it has provided is 24 hours from the time of hearing to issue an order. This wasn't directly tied to performance measures for the hearing officers. It was an aspirational statement and a policy statement by the Commission. They wanted the orders out timely. We have now made an effort to tie this policy into performance measures for the hearing officers. And what we came to realize is through some of the mailing systems we use, it really never happens that an order can go out and get mailed and within 24 hours because it's a 2 to 3 day process depending on it. So we wanted to make sure that what we were requiring in this policy, which is tied to their performance measures and a goal for the hearing officers, is reasonable, is accurate, and so that if they are they're conducting their hearings and completing their orders timely, what was provided for in K5 would reflect that, and then they wouldn't be running afoul of any performance measures. So in working with our management planning folks, Scott Green, we kind of looked at the data, how this would work, and you look at whether it would be over a weekend. You don't want to run afoul of, or if you do Friday hearings, if you have back-to-back hearing days, and you also don't want to have to issue an advising order in a bunch of claims just to buy yourself time to meet the goal. So what this will allow folks to do is if they're being diligent, they can meet this goal, meet the requirement, and the parties will be getting timely orders just as they are now coming out of the hearings.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. I will now ask my fellow commissioners to see if they have any questions on what you've outlined in the Memo K5. I'll first go to Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, see if she has any questions of Mr. Tom Connor.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. Mr. Connor, I just was wondering, was there feedback from the either the union or some of the more senior hearing officers about this? I would imagine they're pleased, but I'd like to know about feedback.
This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. Yes, as a matter of fact, we discussed this with a subsection of the Labor Management Committee, the hearing officers on the Berkeley. I got a email back from Matt Dyack saying this answered all of their concerns that they had with this being measured as a goal then for them. So they were pleased with it.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. Thank you.
This is Jim Hughes. Does Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore have any other questions?
This is Commissioner Gilmore. No.
Thank you to Jim Hughes. Now, Commissioner will call upon Mr. Dan Massey, see if he has any questions, Mr. Tom Connor.
This is Commissioner Massey. I do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Massey. This is Jim Hughes. Hearing no further discussion, I now move to adopt the changes as proposed to Memo K5. You'll have a second in this.
I will second.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. That was
Commissioner Massey.
Commissioner Massey just seconded that. It's been properly moved and seconded. I will now go upon to our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Daniel Massey.
Commissioner Daniel Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. The motion does have the approved number of votes, so it does carry. We'll now go to our next matter on our agenda today, which is a review and discussion of the proposed revisions to the OIC Memo E6. Once again, I'd also ask Mr. Tom Connor, our Director of Adjudication, if he address the proposed revisions in the memo to the Commissioners, please.
This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. The genesis of this change actually came prior to the last meeting, talking about the recent changes in the law. The change that was made to revised Code 412357 provides that the measuring time for filing a C-92 or request for permanent partial is 26 weeks from either the receipt of temporary total, the date of injury, or wages in lieu of compensation, salary continuation, often thought of as that. So the idea was, should the commission consider modifying this policy to provide that it's not just temporary total compensation, but wages in lieu of temporary total compensation, it also would be considered. So I wanted to draft something so the commission could consider whether they wanted to modify this to reflect that change in the law. I will note, drafting here on my, you'll notice in the middle of the, I tried to catch, and I don't know why I missed it, every time temporary total was referred to, I added in the language or wages in lieu of. There is a reference to temporary total compensation in the middle of the paragraph that I somehow missed, and I would also consider doing the exact same thing there that you see in the other two. All we provide is in each instance where temporary total is referred to in the policy, it would say or wages in lieu of temporary total compensation.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Are you asking us to vote on the copy that we have before us, Mr. Tom Connor, or are you asking us to amend that copy to the mistake that you did not catch? I guess I want to make sure everybody is clear on what we're trying to do, and do you have anything written out that you'd like us to amend it to, and, you know, which line and everything else?
Actually, this is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. This is a matter, I guess, as a starting point. You know, the suggestion was I want to make sure the commission is comfortable because it's not a direct relation to the 26 weeks, but I would suggest that this is in compliance with 57, and it was my error in the paragraph. It is the 6th line down. The line starts with temporary total. That the exact same language would fit in that is in 2 other places in the draft. It just provides for wages in lieu of temporary total as well.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. I want to make sure we get this right. Would it be probably behoove all of us if we were maybe be at ease for a few minutes and give you an opportunity to write something up, and that way we can have it. I know I like to see it physically, make sure everything's right, and then we can compare it to the existing copy, where the commissioners know exactly what they're voting. Is that something you think you could get done in a few minutes, or is that something we should table this and come back in another meeting? What's your like to have?
This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. I can do it either way. This isn't imminent, so if you'd rather put it to the next, but I can do it in a matter of 2 minutes.
Okay. This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Is the commissioner, is it okay if he writes something out? Is that all right? Commissioner Gilmore is not, Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, excuse me, acknowledging. Commissioner Massey, is that okay?
Mr. Massey, yes, that's fine.
We'll be at ease for a couple minutes, give you a chance to write that up, because I want to make sure I know what you're doing, because I'm questioning myself in terms of this. So thank you. We'll be at ease for a few minutes until he gets out and the right to comments. Yeah. Please.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Yes.
Exactly. Okay.
There you go.
This is Chairman Jim Hughes. We'll be back in session. Thank you for your patience in terms of this. What has happened is Mr. Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication, has handed each of the commissioners the language that was supposed to be in, and it's actually, let me look down here. The fifth sentence down, line down, after the word compensation, for those out in the audience, it says or wages in lieu of compensation. So if I understand correctly, Mr. Connor, you're asking us to adopt the E6, but before we adopt it, to amend the language you just wrote out and hand it to each one of us to be put in that. Is that correct, Mr. Connor?
This is Tom Connor, Director of Education. Yes, that is correct.
Great. This is Jim Hughes, I'm sorry. Chairman, I'll first go to our, before we ask for a motion to amend this in, I'll first go to my fellow commissioners to see if they have any questions. First, I'll go to Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, see if she has any questions of what we're doing here, or Mr. Tom Connor.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. I have no questions. Thank you.
Jim Hughes, Chairman, thank you, Commissioner Gilmore. I will now go to Commissioner Dan Massey and see if he has any questions on this.
This is Commissioner Massey. No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Jim Hughes. We have been handed a piece of paper, as we all have, regarding something that wants to be amended in. I would move to, in the fifth line, after the words temporary total disability compensation, insert or wages in lieu of compensation. I'd ask to amend that in this document. Do I have a second on that?
This is Commissioner Massey. I will second, Mr. Chairman.
So Jim Hughes, Chairman, thank you. It's been properly moved and seconded regarding an amendment to the proposed memo E6. I'm going to first call on our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll on the amendment.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Daniel Massey.
Commissioner Daniel Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes. The amendment does become part of the bill, or become part of the memo, excuse me. We'll have a tough break here. So that will become part of the actual memo. I'll next go to, now we have the memo in front of us before us. Before I ask for a motion to accept this, I'll first once again go upon our commissioners, make sure they don't have any questions on the total package here. I'll go to Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, see if she has any questions on this before we go on.
This is Commissioner Karen Gilmore. No questions. Thank you.
So Chairman Jim Hughes, thank you, Commissioner Gilmore. I'll now go to Commissioner Dan Massey, see if he has any questions on this before we vote.
This is Commissioner Dan Massey. I do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Having no further discussion, I move to adopt memo E6. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Massey. I will second.
This is Chairman Jim Hughes. It's been properly moved and second to adopt E6 as amended. I'll first call upon our Executive Director, Tim Adams, for the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
This is Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Daniel Massey.
This is Commissioner Daniel Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. The motion does have the proper number of votes, so it does carry. We have now exhausted our list of agendas for a special meeting. I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Massey. I will second.
It's now been properly moved and second to adjourn our special meeting. I'll once again call upon our Executive Director, Tim Adams. Call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes. Motion does carry. Before I adjourn, I want to wish everybody happy holidays, happy New Year. This meeting is adjourned.